And I think sometimes it's less about introducing a manga fan to something they haven't seen before, but more being ahead of the trend or kind of being on running path with that trend, so that when they come into your store, you're more trying to catch them in the phase of like, oh, I haven't picked up this volume yet.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. Eisner approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with
パトリック・ブラウアーとモーガン・ペリー。
I had a very basic and general intro translated into Japanese in honor of my co-host for this week. And after playing it, it was decided that let's not do that. So instead, you don't have Dal Bush this week. You do have me, Patrick, but even better than both Dal and I combined, we have Morgan Perry with us for this week. Welcome, Morgan.
Hi, Patrick. It's so good to see you and listen to you. I can't see you. I can hear you.
Just close your eyes.
Close
and
my
think
eyes.
of the last time we were together about 2 years ago. But,
at ALA.
Yep. So looking back, so that you're not a new person on this podcast. You've been here before. And looking back through the annals, do you have any idea how long ago you were last on Contest of Challengers?
Probably it had to be in my first year at Boom.
Yeah.
10 years ago, something like that, between 7 or 10 years ago.
Yes. It is 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
8 years ago. Now, time as a construct always boggles my mind because last Monday, Challengers celebrated its 17th anniversary. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've started asking people, what were you doing 17 years ago? But then I realized I don't want the answer to that because most of them were like, our employee Andrew was like, I was in middle school. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to know that. And what makes it even longer of a time is that this year I will hit my 35th comics retail anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So it's a long time for a lot of things. And there's so many people who I know in my life who didn't exist 35 years ago. So yeah, let's not talk about time. But anyway, I didn't even realize that we've known each other for that long.
I know. It's been great though, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It feels like I've always known you, but to me, Challengers is still new. And to me, you're still the youth of the industry. You know, you are the
baby.
You're the baby, but you're the present and the future of this industry. And if you've already been in this for 8 years, I mean, 8 years ago, you were already out of your retail phase and into your publishing phase. And that's just like time. I don't get it. It blows my mind.
I don't either. It feels weird to be almost at the point of I've been working in publishing for 10 years and I'm I am still very much learning at new things every single day. And the industry is constantly changing and we're having to pivot and change and do all this stuff and seeing new folks come in too. And it feels so weird.
Right. And I look at your journey and you're already at your third publisher as you keep growing and getting to focus on more of what you're really interested in and how you want to move the industry forward. And I'm doing the same thing I've been doing for 35 years.
Okay,
Just, different concepts because obviously the industry has changed. But specifically, if you look at the last 8 years, and at that point, Challengers was already 9 years old.
Right.
Challengers hasn't changed that much in the time where you have changed dramatically and for the better.
But I think there can be a lot said for consistency and to have greatness in consistency, which is what you guys are.
Well, I appreciate that, but I also often feel stagnated. And now more than ever, with all of the changes in the retail landscape,
that's understandable.
It feels like all we're doing is working so much harder just to stay alive. And
yeah, you are.
We do have so many different things that we do now, but I wish we didn't have to do them.
No, and nor should you. You guys do so much work from beginning to end in the life process of a book on the retail side that I don't think a lot of people recognize and see. And they should, because from ordering all the way down to merchandising to hand selling, like it's all there. It's all you. And there's so much more you have to do and so much more you have to do to get people in the door. And there's new product lines coming out and what's going to be good for your store? What's not going to be good for your store? Is this going to hit? Is this not going to hit? Like, it's a lot of work.
And if it doesn't hit, why doesn't it hit when we believe in it so much? Or why did this
Exactly.
thing hit that we had no faith in? Why did that hit?
Yes.
So Mitchell Davis from All Star Comics in Melbourne,
Right.
Australia. He's the retailer I talk to most.
Mm.
You know, I do have close relationships with retailers around the world, but
Mitchell's great.
Mitchell and I talk regularly. And because it's a 15-hour time difference, it's usually it'll be morning for him, but like, I don't know, usually around 3 or 4 a.m. my time is like the end of his next day work day.
Yeah.
So he'll just have had a whole bunch of experiences and he'll just like message a couple of things. And then one of the things we both agreed on is how we're both in multiple retailer Facebook groups. I still call them message boards, but obviously they're not. They're just Facebook groups. But anyway, I had commented how I don't understand how so many of the retailers who are so very, very vocal on these channels, and that's what the channels are there for. But all I said was, how do they have that kind of time? How can you be on Facebook so much talking about what's happening when I'm just too busy having those happenings and jumping online to talk about it doesn't occur to me. It's not a thing that I even think of there being time to do, but I'm like, man,
You're too in it solving the problem.
Yeah.
To talk about it.
And I get every single store is different, and I'm not in any way criticizing anybody. And, you know, maybe that person isn't on the sales floor every single hour of the day or whatever. Maybe they're more of an administrational role.
Right.
Or their workday is mainly online. So having a tab open is nothing, like that kind of thing. But I always just thought, it's like, wow, I don't have that much time to stress about those kind of problems because I'm just in the middle of them. But by the same token, I have Contest of Challengers, and that is my outlet for complaining about the workings of the day or the industry or whatever. And it's a very cathartic process to be able to come into a situation really angry about it, but then just talking about it, letting that dissipate. And I realized that, no, this podcast is your version of being online. So you make the time for this every week, so it counts. So
it's also a very productive use of your time as well to help inform other retailers and like talk about these different types of challenges and inform people what you're going through, as opposed to being like siloed in a Facebook group or a message board. Like I do anyway. I like hearing what you guys have to think.
Well, I appreciate that. And honestly, it is the feedback from people like you. All of my old boom peeps have always been so supportive of this podcast, from you to Rune to Philip. We had Ross had always complained that I never had him on the podcast. And one year I'm like, all right, we're going to do it. He's like, I've been waiting for this. Why have you never asked me? And then we were setting it up and then he's gone. So there we go.
The times they do be a changing.
Yeah. I mean, Ross's journey to Boom almost lines up directly with my journey into Challengers, because
that would have been cool.
When I met Ross on the floor of the San Diego Con, I was working at a different store. He was working at a different publisher. He came up to sell me variant covers of a book they were doing. I bought them, and that started a whole journey of me not knowing how to say no to Ross. And it became a point, and I know we're getting way off topic of why we're even talking about this today, but you know, it's fun to reminisce about things like that with people that we both know. But it got to a point when if Ross would call the store, I would make Dal talk to him, because whatever he wanted, I would just like, yes, we'll do it, whatever. And Dad would be like, no, we're not doing that. So I'm like, okay, you have to tell him no. So Dal had to be the person to talk to Ross because I couldn't say no to him.
Oh, poor Dal.
Oh, no, Dal's fine with it. Dal's very clinical, and he's not worried about hurting feelings because in his, rightly so, in his mind, he's like, I have to think about my store first. And if I don't think it's a good idea, it's not a good idea.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Total
But
sense.
anyway,
Makes total
Morgan, I did a thing for this episode that I don't really do. And I went back and I listened to your episode 8 years ago,
Gosh.
and then your recent appearance on Off Panel, just because I don't want to waste your time asking the same things. And I'm not like, if anybody is interested in hearing Morgan's journey to comics, you can go all the way back to, and we don't number our podcasts. We were told not to by when we joined very briefly joined the Yak Channel podcast network many, many years ago.
Oh, right. I do remember that.
Yeah. And we're not with them, and they don't exist anymore. But your episode was July 24th, 2017, and it is titled, and it's a quote from you, "I literally do not live in a world without comics."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is a blast from the past.
Right? So if anybody wants to hear that, just because we obviously have a lot of different listeners now from 8 years ago, but if you just go to contestofchallengers.com, down the archive sidebar, go to 2017, click into July, and then it is, you will see a picture of a green tinted haired Morgan in front of a Boom Studios rack.
Yes.
And then you can listen to that. And
oh my gosh.
That was recorded, I believe, on your lunch break.
It was.
Time. Yeah.
And I was like 7 months into Boom too, like very early in my career, which so super, super baby Morgan.
Right. And now
it's just changed.
So many publishers later, I do, but we're here mainly to talk about manga, which is a thing that literally every retailer I know comes to you for advice for. And,
feels like sometimes.
And your role currently at Square Enix.
Yes.
So let's dive in, because first of all, let's start with you being at Square Enix.
Yeah, so I moved over to Square Enix at the top of 2024.
Do you say it like it's one word, Square Enix?
Square Enix.
Square Enix. Oh,
Square
wow.
Enix.
See? Well, so long before not long before, but before we started recording, we were talking about how Americans mispronounce Japanese words all the time. And I've been doing it my entire life with Square Enix.
I've been hearing it Square Enix at work, and I've also heard Square Enix. So say what makes you feel comfortable. To be honest, I think both are accepted. I have been learning to repronounce words because I am learning Japanese currently. And so that it also messes with my pronunciation of normal English words, which is hilarious to me now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been, I realize that I'm translating things in my brain when I'm not supposed to be because I'm trying to learn the vocabulary, and I'm like, no, don't do that. So my speech ends up becoming really muddled sometimes because I'm like, wait, what's the word? But yeah, I mean, I started at Square Enix as the marketing manager for book publishing for their Square Enix. See, I keep switching between the two. Square Enix manga and books line as their marketing manager. And that has been a really interesting transition from where I previously was, which was Skybound as their brand manager for editorial.
Did you seek them out? Did they come to you?
So it was kind of a crazy random happenstance, which was I happened to just kind of be on LinkedIn one day, just messing around. And I saw that they had a posting up for marketing manager for book publishing. And I read the description. I was like, I do that. And I was, I had applied to a couple places beforehand. I'd always wanted to be in manga at some place. So if I saw a job pop up, I would apply to it on a whim. Not that I was unhappy or anything at any of my other previous publishers. I very much enjoyed working at Boom and very much enjoyed working at Skybound as well. But, you shoot your shot if you can.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I saw it and I applied to it kind of at random, not entirely at random, but, as random as you can when you have a good job set up already.
You mean blindly, you didn't have, nobody brought you into it. Nobody said, hey, we recommend Morgan for the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just hit that LinkedIn link and was like, apply. And, I waited a little bit and then I got a response in my email and it was like, your application has been denied. There are too many applicants. Sorry about that. And I was wow. Oh, cool. And in my little mind, which is never expect anything, I was like, cool, the universe is telling me it's not my time yet for manga. So I'm just going to continue on my way. And it wasn't until I went to New York Comic Con in 2023 And I stopped by the Yen Press booth, and my good friend Mark DeVera, who formerly worked at Viz, now works at Yen, and we just kind of stayed connected for many, many years as we both kind of came up in comics at the same time. He was always like trying to get me into manga. Like he had 100% been trying to get me on their side of the fence for a really long time. Was like, hey, did you see the Square Enix job? And I was like, yeah, I applied to it. And my application got denied because there were too many applicants. And the way his face changed from like, hey, how you doing, bud, at a show to like, what? That's not okay. And he was like, I'm going to make a call. And like, when you hear that from folks, you're like, okay, cool. But like, again, I don't expect anything from anybody because everybody's so busy and they're focused on their own work. So, you know, I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple of days later, I got an email from HR at Square Enix being like, we're so sorry. The type of applicant that we're looking for. Can you talk to us on this date? And so I went to the interview.
Know who you were. We're sorry.
I didn't know what happened. It's like, oh my gosh. It was like AI filtering that had happened to me. So like be aware of that when you apply to jobs now, I guess. And I went through the interview process. And again, like every single step of the way, I was like not expecting to get it because that's just kind of how things work. And I was very happy with where I was at Skybound as well. And I got to like the final rounds and they're like, okay, well, we'll be contacting you probably in the next, week or so. And I was like, cool, just a heads up. I'm going to be out of the country for the next 10 days. I'm going to be in Japan. So I'm going to be 18 hours ahead of LA time. And they're like, okay, no problem. And then I get like an email or something when we were on the train to Osaka. And it was like, hey, can you talk with us on Monday morning or like Monday afternoon? It was like LA time. And I was like, well, that's going to be like 9 a.m. my time when we're back in Tokyo. So I took the call on the balcony of our Airbnb super early in the morning, like 12 hours after my fiance had actually like proposed to me. So it was a very whirlwind 24 hours of they offered the job. They were like, when can you start? And I was like, can I have 24 hours to like just consider everything and like make my phone calls and like walk around? I think it was like we were walking around like Asakusa that day. And I was like talking with my partner and he was like, well, there's no reason for you not to take the job. I was like, you're right. Yeah. And I called Arun Singh, who was my supervisor and very good friend, and still is my very good friend at Skybound. And I was like, hey, bud. So he knew that I had applied to the job because I was very open about what I had done. I was like, just so you know, like, I'm not planning to leave, but like, if it ended up happening that way and the cookie crumbles that way, just letting you know in advance so you can prepare mentally. And he was like, okay, cool. Thanks for telling me, because we had that kind of relationship.
Sure.
And I called him and I was like, hey, bud. So I think I'm going to take this job. And he was like, okay, cool, good. Because if you didn't, I was going to be so mad at you. So you don't ever want to make Arun Singh angry is just what I'm saying. So
sure. I try not to. I've never actually met Arun in person. We've only ever interacted online.
Oh, yeah. Because he wasn't able to make it to the Tilly signing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's already threatened that the second we see each other in person, whenever it is, we have to wrestle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And,
oh, goodness.
One of my favorite interactions was when we were leading up to the Tilly Walden signing, which was now almost 2 years ago. It was ALA of 2023.
Yes.
And Arun had always told me, like, hey, because I always expressed interest in Tilly Walden because Challengers loves Tilly Walden, of course, because we have eyes and know how to read. And when she first started doing a tour for her Walking Dead book, it was only like East Coast, West Coast, nothing Midwest.
Right. And
I'd reached out and said, boy, I really hope she does Midwest. And Arun got back to me and said, do you think we would do that and not have you on the list?
Right.
I'm like, oh, all right. Okay. So back on January 21st, 2023 at 1:18 a.m. my time is when Arun first messaged me with the hypothetical of having a Tilly Walden at Challengers on a Sunday night signing.
That sounds about right.
I didn't get it until 3 a.m. my time. And so this is me responding to Arun at 3:07 a.m. And in the middle of my typing, I hit caps lock.
Oh, no.
I said, Arun, I just came home from an Italo disco set at a local dive bar and am quite drunk. I thought you said Tilly Walden. That's how drunk I am. Ha ha ha. Drunk enough not to notice caps lock. Would Tilly also want to be in our wrestling video? Because Arun had said,
Yeah, you had. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Italo disco is just early techno. Why they got to give it a fancy name, Arun? I don't get it. And then he got back to me at 9:41 a.m. to have, and then I said, the actual answer to your question is mid-May. I think that would give us a solid month of buildup. So I was able to finally answer his question for real, because he was saying, "What would we need to start promoting this?"
Exactly.
But yeah, the first of this was all like, I don't think I heard you right. You said Tilly Walden. That can't be right.
Did you mean to type something differently?
Yeah, right?
you typed Tilly Walden. Are you sure that's just not autocorrect?
Yeah, exactly. And then my first question was, would Tilly want to wrestle with us? And then I complained about Italo disco having a terrible name.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the initial, do you want a signing with Tilly Walden? That is how I had answered it as a complete professional at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, and I have to drink again. I'm sorry, I got something.
No, you're fine.
I just get so emotional thinking about Tilly Walden and Arun. You understand.
I mean, those are two very amazing people that absolutely, right? If you're in a room with them, like, you're going to have the best time regardless. Separately, they're awesome and great, and you're going to have a great time. But when they're together in the same room, watch out, because it is so much fun. They are so much fun.
I don't have that experience. I've never met Arun.
We gotta change that, Arun. You have to change that. Yeah. I know you listen to this. You need to change this. Make time for Patrick.
We talked about trying to meet up this year, but he's cutting way back on his conventions this year. So I don't have the opportunity. Plus, I'd wound up not going to Comics Pro.
I know. I was so sad. I was like, where's our Bring Patrick to Comics Pro fund? We need this.
And then, so I was going to hang out. This is completely, again, off topic, but that's what we do here at Contest Challengers. I was going to stay a couple days later and just hang out with my friend Amber. And that wound up not happening. And so now, next year, assuming that Comics Pro is the same weekend,
right?
She's going to be in Paris that weekend. So I can't even take, because I never get a chance to see Amber as much as I want to. It's because I never go to California.
Right.
Anyway, so you got the job at Square Enix, and when you had first cryptically said online that you were moving on to something else, I assume everybody bombarded you with messages of, oh, which manga publisher is it? And I myself said, oh my God, is it Viz? Are you working for Viz?
Yes.
And you're like, close. Close.
Yes. So yes, there was a bombardment of messages of where are you going? And is it a manga publisher? You were the first one though, so I give you credit for that. But a lot of people were like, it's either going to be Viz or it's going to be Kodansha or something. No one thought Square Enix, which was kind of funny. And it kind of aligns with what I've been doing the last year, which is every time I'm at an event, the number one thing that is said to us is, I didn't realize that Square Enix published manga. And I have to just recenter myself and be correct. They haven't been publishing manga in English in the US since they started in 2019 with their English language department, which was Square Enix Manga and Books. But prior to that, Square Enix has been publishing manga in Japan since 1991 through the Gangan magazines and all of its subsidiaries like Young Gangan, Gangan Joker, those types of magazines, very much in the same way of Weekly Jump. And a lot of the series that people really like here in the US that are quite popular, one of them being Full Metal Alchemist, a little series by Hiromu Arakawa that is, I think, up until recently, because it was recently dethroned by Frieren on my anime list as the top rated anime among fans. That is a Square Enix title, published through Viz now. Soul Eater, which was originally published, I think, in the US under Yen Press, Square Enix title. Toiletbound Hanako-kun in Japan, published here by Yen Press, Square Enix title. Black Butler, Square Enix title, published by Yen Press. A bunch of titles that are really, really popular are Square Enix titles. And now that we have our own English language department for publishing, we are able to kind of first pick those licenses and publish them through the house imprint.
Well, also, I think you just perfectly described why you belong in that role, to create this awareness of what was theirs and what you're doing now. And I said theirs, but now it's yours. And you are in a perfect position to spread the word, spread the gospel of Square Enix, and to increase their exposure, which is honestly why they want you in that role.
Oh, I appreciate that. We were laughing because I think for last year's Comics Pro, I showed a picture of like baby Morgan, like 12-year-old Morgan, like with like a huge manga haul. And one of like the book my mom sent me, the pictures my mom sent me for this presentation was me holding up the Full Metal Alchemist art book. And my boss, Masaki Shimizu, was like, that you've been a fan for a very long time. And I was just like, yes. I had
That's why I'm
like,
here.
hoodie, and I would draw Soul Eater fan art. Like it felt very much like the Square Enix path was kind of always there. Or at least it was like massive foreshadowing, like way back in the day. So it's very exciting to be working for a publisher that has such a rich history with a lot of beloved titles, a lot of different types of creators, different types of stories. Cause like it's a lot of the Square Enix titles are not necessarily like, they don't fit into like a certain demographic of like shonen or, you know, things like battle stuff. Like there's some of that. But then there's also stories like My Dress Up Darling that focuses on cosplay. There's A Man and His Cat that is just a cute little slice of life manga about an old man and his newly adopted pet cat. And there's a bunch of different types of stories that they work with. And I find that really, really fascinating as a publisher.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to be able to be a part of a line that's that diverse?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
I think I had already sent you this photo a while ago, but Todeban Honoka-kun is one of my favorite stories to tell, as far as how the Simon & Schuster would completely... It's Simon & Schuster, right?
Yen is published through or distributed through Hachette.
Hachette, okay. The invoice that broke it down 7 different ways.
You did tell me this,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Seven different ways for the same title. Like we were getting restock on 8 different volumes, and
Oh man.
they listed it 7 different ways on the invoice. Yeah.
Wow.
And that just goes to show why the industry needs the Comet standard. But anyway.
It's a metadata nightmare.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. And I think one of the really fun parts of most manga books are the titles, and how the titles just keep getting longer and longer. But I cannot do this from memory, but an upcoming Viz book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was part of their April Fool's.
It wasn't real?
It's not
Oh.
real. It's not real. Everyone I sent that to was like, is this real? And I was like, no, it's their annual. Viz does this thing. I think they started doing it like maybe they were doing it when I was at Boom. So I don't remember if that was the first year that they did it or not. But one year they decided on April Fool's to release fake titles, like announce fake titles. And it basically went viral on like Twitter, now known as X. And they've been doing it every year since. And the titles just get so crazy. Like I think that one, the title is My Dad is a Demon Lord, but I want to be a barista even though my girlfriend is allergic to milk. My cat loves milk. It's in parentheses. So I don't get along with my boss. On top of all of that, I have allergies. It's raining and I slip every 5 minutes. And I'm like, I actually want to read this book.
Right?
I'm like, you've hit all of my boxes, which is like demonic dark fantasy, coffee shop AU. There's a cat in it. Like, you've hit all the boxes. Give me this book.
Yeah, I 100% thought that was real. And I was even bad-mouthing the idea of April Fool's Day this year because so many of the April Fool's stories are so obvious.
Yeah.
And like annoying. I'm like, why do we do this? Why as adults is this a thing? Especially in today's society.
Exactly.
When anything you hear sounds so horrific that it can't be true, and it is. I fully believe that, and now I'm disappointed.
There are some years where the books that Viz announces on April Fools you can very much tell that they're April Fool's jokes. Like these can't possibly be published. This year's though were so good. And I was like, why don't all 3 of these exist? Because one was like Live, Love, Haunt. And it was like, give me that one. Death by the Quill, which I guess had something to do with Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe. And I was just like,
I mean,
whatever this is, sure, why not?
Man. Oh, good times. Good times.
I love that we can still have fun in comics. Like,
right.
That was great.
I mean, let's put the comic back in comics.
Yes.
Not exclusively, but when it relates. Okay, so one of the reasons that we are talking right now, I mean, not just because it's a joy to talk to you, but I'm lucky enough to get to do that when we're not recording as well. We just talked.
We just hang out and talk.
Yeah, exactly. We did this just a month or so ago. Well, I guess December. Anyway, let's talk about Comic Partner.
Okay.
Comic Partner is the new retailer support initiative that's coming out of Square Enix Manga and Books.
Correct.
In collaboration with PRH, Penguin Random House, for retailers who get their books through them.
Yes, correct. So this is, like you said, a retailer support initiative that is actually through Penguin Random House's existing program, which is called the Direct Market Partnership Program. And there's different qualifications for retailers to be a part of that program. I think it's something like 5% of your orders have to be what they consider
outside of
non-comics core. Yeah. So basically, if you're ordering things that aren't periodical single issue comics or publishers that publish periodical single issues, and there are publishers that are part of that program that are considered non-comics core, like Square Enix publishes manga. I think Kodansha is also part of it. And I think Little Golden Books is also part of it as well, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But when we saw that and knew that, you know, retailers who are part of this program who qualify for this program get an extra 2% discount on those non-comics core publisher items, we were like, how can we support them like once they buy our books in store? Because, you know, it doesn't just stop with the purchasing. There has to be some sort of additional support on the back end as well from publishers. And if we can do that and be able to signal to the customer in your store that you carry manga and you carry, you know, different types of manga that they may not already be used to in the mainstream, but still recognize if they're in the community, that helps elevate those stores as a place to purchase manga. Because I've been to several stores, as you know, I've always checked out their manga sections. And I will say this is not Challengers, because I love y'all's section. I buy from you guys online all the time. But the common thing I've always seen as a consumer of manga when I check out manga sections in comic shops is that it's very much the same three archetypes of books, which are the long-running shonen series with hyper-popular anime series that are running, but a second season hasn't been announced or out yet. So there's like this huge, long backlog of books. There are the manga that I feel like people are like, you should be reading this, like the Berserk hardcovers or kind of more of the classic manga, the Junji Ito collections, all of those, which are all wonderful. And then books that have the word cat in them. That seems to be the three archetypes. And there is nothing wrong with carrying that. But if you're wanting to expand your manga section beyond the casual viewer, or you're wanting to build out your community a little bit more, you need to be carrying more than that, because a lot of those folks are already going to have those series and they're going to be like, this is boring. This doesn't have anything for me. I'm not going to come back. So there needs to kind of be a way to intrigue them and kind of give you guys street cred, I guess. and bring in
manga street
series.
Cred is a very hard thing to get.
It really is, yeah, because they're very discerning. You think comic fans are very discerning. Manga fans are even more so. And I think that they're very much ingrained in the publishing aspect of it in a way that I think differentiates themselves from comics fans. They know what's being published in Japan. They're aware of what has English licenses and what doesn't. They're tracking those series. They're reading the scans, hoping that, you know, the fan translations, hoping that these get picked up. And they have their fingers on the pulse in a way that is just so unique.
Yeah, I think that it is hard for a comic book store that carries manga to introduce manga fans to something they haven't heard of, the way it's very easy to get comic fans into a new book that they haven't heard of. I think that the manga fans come looking for a specific thing. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have it, maybe they'll pick something else up. But I think it's extremely rare for a dialed-in manga fan, which are most of them, for them to be like, oh, this thing on your shelf, I've never seen this before. Let me pick this up, since I don't know what it is. Like, it's hard to not stump them, but introduce them to something they don't know about, where it is difficult for, I think, the average comic shop to know what the fans already know.
Yeah.
Without being like, if you're not a dedicated manga reader, you are going to get lost very quickly.
Exactly. And I think sometimes it's less about introducing a manga fan to something they haven't seen before, but more being ahead of the trend or kind of being on running path with that trend, so that when they come into your store, you're more trying to catch them in the phase of like, oh, I haven't picked up this volume yet.
Sure. Yeah. That makes
where they're aware
sense.
of it and they see it and they're like, yes, I need to get this, because like while pre-ordering is a thing, there is a higher propensity for this customer to purchase things when they're just on sale. So there's more of that at play here, which can make things really difficult for a comic shop that base their entire ordering model off of pre-orders. So that's kind of where Comic Partner comes in, where we're not only we're hoping to provide print and digital assets for support, and that is like promotional marketing items in store, whether that's posters, bookmarks, standees, etc., those types of things, so that we can like visually connect manga in your store and visually connect these characters in your store in the same way that you're doing with Spider-Man, Batman, Invincible, all of these different, high profile characters, so that like when that person that comes in to pick up their Batman pull and they're there with their partner, their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their kids, whatever, someone can see whether it's Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You poster or a standee that features a man and his cat and go, oh, that's really awesome. Where do you have that? Like they're able to start that customer conversation. And now you not only have the person that's coming in for the poll, but now the person that's coming in with them is also excited because you have something for them as well. That casual customer that may not necessarily be purchasing things from you, that may not be a hardcore comics fan. That's the person that we're trying to kind of like capture in your store, as opposed to like pulling the manga fans out of the Barnes & Noble, out of the Amazon into your store. We're trying to connect with the community you already have. And then kind of going back a little bit, the program has one major thing for any retailer that's enrolled in the Direct Market Partnership Program, is that we are sending out one free volume 1 of 3 pre-selected series per year. And these are series that we're trying to signal to the market and to direct market retailers of like, this will be huge. And we have announced the first 2 titles. They are Love in the Palm of His Hand by Rinteku, and On and Off,
Work-Life Balance.
Yes, by Shinosuke Kanazawa. And we picked those 2 titles because, one, there's crazy crossover opportunity for both of those titles if you carry queer and LGBTQIA plus graphic novels in your store. Both of them kind of deal with different aspects of it, which is awesome. We can get into that later if you want. But mainly, when we announced these 2 titles at Anime Expo last year, the social engagement for both of these series was insane. The fans were like, I am so glad this is coming to English. I am so excited that they're bringing this to print. I need to know where I can get it. This is a long time coming. My bingo card has been full. Like, we have so many people constantly talking about these 2 series. And it's like, okay, cool. These have no media adaptations. These have no additional kind of drivers other than fans really love the story. Fans really love the characters. Fans really love the art. And they're talking about it constantly.
Do they have a large Japanese published backlog of these?
No.
Okay.
That's the funny thing, is that like both of these series at the time of their announcement only had 1 or 2 volumes published in Japan. So they're very new series in Japan too, but the sales in Japan are doing really well. So that's usually an indicator that a series will do well in the West as well. But where I think that comic shops will benefit from this is that we're seeing that social engagement. They might not necessarily be tuned in to the social media market or the community, or like be on top of the manga news and realize that these 2 series are coming. But if they have them, if we can signal that to them in a certain way, whether that is through the volume 1s that we send, that will help them go, okay, out of all the books that Square Enix publishes, these are the 2 that I need this season. These 2 right here.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And then we're also offering through this program 1-hour manga restructuring calls with your Square Enix rep, which is me. So it's me. So if you have questions about your manga section, or wanting to start a manga section, or wanting to expand, or you have questions about like what resources are there available to learn more about the manga community, look at what I'm carrying in store to kind of help me tailor my end caps a little bit more. That's what that time is used for. It's kind of a choose your own adventure style to learn more about manga, and to kind of have that one-on-one established communication with a rep that is going to look at your section, and kind of go over it with you and answer your questions. And also, like, I have no loyalty. I will sell everyone's books. I've been that way since day one. So
well,
if
it's not that you have no, it's the opposite. You have loyalty to manga as a concept. So you're loyal to everyone simultaneously.
Yes, I just want manga to do really well, and I want comic shops to have a viable way to carry it in store. And I realize that it's a difficult product to carry in comic shops. And number one thing I hear from retailers all the time is, I don't know what this is. I don't know how to carry it. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. But it's the same way that when customers come into your store and they don't know about comics, they don't know where to start either. So it's kind of a reversal. There's a lot of the same challenges with manga that there are with comics.
If you look at, if a comics retailer looks at themselves as the customer, as opposed to them being the person selling the book, then they get to understand how their customers react on a completely global concept. I don't just mean manga, I mean comics as well. Mm-hmm. If you realize that you are the customer in that regard, it's a lot easier to understand and to be able to think about it in terms of the customer when you're the customer. Like, well, what will make this make sense to you? And that is how you make it make sense to other people. And that's not just manga, that's comics as a whole.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also like the same, it's like with any store and curation, like you have to curate your store in a way that works best for your clientele and your customer base. And your customer base may not do well with the long-running shonen series with the hyper-popular anime adaptations. You may do really well with horror in your store, and you may have a huge James Tynion IV section in your store. And so, like, okay, cool. If you're selling Nice House on the Lake hand over fist, you should be carrying The Summer Hikaru Died, because that is some really awesome body horror mixed with like alien body snatching stuff, and also like light BL, a boys love, a queer story kind of mixed in there too. Like, that is exactly that type of customer that's coming in for Nice House on the Lake. And you already have a crossover opportunity for a manga series that not necessarily everyone is picking up, but they should be reading, because that anime is coming out soon and it is going to blow people's minds. I'm so excited for it.
All right. So that is a huge tip right there.
The Summer Hikaru Died from Yen Press. You can get it through Hachette.
There you go.
You're welcome, Mark. I don't think Mark listens to this, but you're welcome, Mark.
His loss. He at least needs to listen to this episode.
Agreed.
Do you find it, and again, I'm stepping away slightly with a more broad question, but do you find that it is harder to get the average comic fan into trying a manga series as opposed to somebody who doesn't read comics in general, where picking up manga is more intuitive? We always have, not always, but like every once in a while, I had to explain to a parent just over the weekend that manga is read in a different format than English comics are. And it always helps that there's a guide in the back of the book. Like, hey, if you open it what you consider the normal way, it'll say, stop, you're reading it wrong. And explaining to parents that, no, this is the way it's done in Japan and the way that all these books are going to be. And it's very easy to pick it up, especially if you're younger, but adults seem to have a hard time going right to left.
Yeah, I think if we're talking like the hardcore Wednesday Warrior type, I think that's going to be probably your most difficult person to try and not convert over to manga, because you don't necessarily want to change anyone's habits, but introduce manga, I think, would probably be the appropriate way. Yeah. But I do think, if your customer base is kind of still in that millennial, older Gen Z demographic, like, it is a little bit easier, because most folks right now are focused on story, I feel like, or at least most comic fans are interested in stories. I was talking to David Harper. We were talking about our good friend David from Off Panel and Sketched before the recording. And we were talking at San Diego Comic-Con last year about manga and how he had not read any manga prior to this year, when he posted his list and was talking about Hirayasumi from Viz. And David's the type of person that is very much like gung-ho North American comics, but is a very much appreciator of story.
Yeah.
So when we approached it from that aspect of like, manga are comics. I don't know if people know that. They're comics too. So I think if you come into that aspect of it's sequential storytelling and it's visual storytelling, the average person is probably going to be more open to it if you've got the solid pitch for it and you're already kind of trying to tie it into what they're reading. Again, using the Nice House on the Lake example.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much more difficult than to say, oh, you only read color comics. You've never read black and white comics before.
Yes.
Here's black and white indie comics. It's all comics.
Exactly. And there is like that little bit of barrier to entry with the reading from right to left. Like that can throw people off a lot. I know for me, like I've been reading manga for so long that I have to like stop myself and learn how to read left to right when I'm looking at normal comics again. Cause like it's a wild ride. I'm like, this sentence doesn't make sense at all. And I'm like, oh, right. Cause you're reading a normal graphic novel, Morgan. Like,
I have had actual conversations with educated adults who do not read comics, but whose partners read comics or whose partners make comics. And when I say, hey, this particular book, this would be perfect for you. And they just say, I don't read comics. Like, why don't you read comics? And it turns out that there's a level of a learning curve. Mm-hmm. If you've never read comics before and you've only ever read prose books, having to read dialogue, but also look at the image of what's happening, there's a disconnect in some people's heads where they just can't do that. Like they just want to read all the dialogue and keep moving forward, but they're missing all the action. They're missing everything else, all the visual constructs on the page. And like literal people that are way smarter than I am that just don't have it in them to read a comic book page because it doesn't make sense to them. And I guess it's the same way that some people don't like subtitles on movies.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely.
Reading and watching. But I always feel that when people are like, well, I don't read comics, what they're saying is comics are beneath me. And what is really happening is that they just can't figure out how to learn comics.
Yeah, we're getting into that realm of comics and graphic storytelling is not real books, which that is, I will die fighting on that hill. Absolutely. That comics are books, manga are comics, and therefore manga are books. Because
you know what?
Visual literacy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, because this is an argument I get into a lot of people. Do you consider listening to an audiobook reading?
Yes. And I do that because I have reading comprehension issues and I can't actually read prose books.
Okay.
It takes me 3 times as long to read a prose book as it would to like read a comic and that's just how I learn. I can't process information with just visuals or just words. That's how I've always been since a very young child. So I count audiobooks as reading.
Okay. And then that goes hand in hand with comics are books.
Yes.
Comics are books. Look, the second half of their title is books.
Exactly.
Books.
And if you're the type of person that wants to enjoy medium and storytelling from, Asia and Southeast Asia countries, like absolutely try light novels. That would be my recommendation because that is available to folks as well as the light novel format, which is newer to the US and Western English-speaking audiences, but maybe not necessarily something I would recommend for all comic shops to carry at this time.
Sure.
But if you're listening to this and you're not reading comic books, which I don't understand if you're listening to
a comic podcast.
Exactly. You're not reading comics. But if you do have that person in your life that is like, I can't read comics or I don't want to read comics or comics are beneath me, try a light novel.
Yeah, there you go.
Try a light novel. But also,
just ironically, I have been texting with David Harper while we're talking. He started it. I wouldn't normally be like, oh, I'm only talking to Morgan. I can text other people. No, he texted me and I said, hey, I'm talking to Morgan. Get back to me in like 45 minutes. And he said, oh, tell Morgan I said hi.
Hi, David.
So there you go. Oh, don't worry. He doesn't listen to this podcast. I listen to his. He doesn't listen to mine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I hope that's a joke.
It's not. I did when you were going on his. I'm like, hey, we talked to Morgan years ago. If you want to listen to what she had to say, and he said, I don't listen to comic podcasts, and I definitely don't want to listen to an interview with somebody else before someone's on my show.
I can understand that from
I get it.
research purpose. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can totally get that.
I mean, I can understand the opposite as well. It's like, well, what, maybe there's good questions you want to borrow and modify, or maybe you're like, oh, well, this is something that everyone asks, so I don't want to ask it.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, I think it's fine to ask questions over and over because you, in theory, have different audiences who are hearing those answers. I liken it to you being a movie star who's on a press junket and you have 50 different reporters talking to you over the course of 4 hours. You're going to get the same question like 40 times.
Absolutely.
But it's going to be 40 different groups of people who are reading the answers. So it may be boring to say the same thing over and over, but different people get to hear it each time.
But at the same time, it does really help on being on the other side of it when you're getting asked those questions over and over and over again, that someone throws in that really curveball, interesting question that no one's asked you, and you get really excited and you get to listen to that person's like really excited answer and they get to nerd out a little bit. I love that stuff. That's so much fun.
Also, I think it helps the person who's answering the questions really refine their answers.
Yes.
When I go through Artist Alley, and more Artist Alley, like C2E2 is this upcoming weekend in Chicago, and more the Artist Alley and C2E2 is just people selling prints, people doing sketches. It's hard to find people doing comics, actually making physical comics. And that's why Dal and I go up at every single aisle of Artist Alley. We want to find new creations. We want to find people we don't know. We want to find new books to stock. But the number of times I find a book, I'm like, all right, pitch me. What do you got? What is this book? Why should I buy it? And the number of times the person looks like deer in the headlights, like, will you just buy this and not ask me about it? Kind of thing. I'm like, no, you have to sell it to me so I can sell it to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of what we want to do with the Comic Partner Program, is make that easier for you. So like, we have the FOC newsletter that goes out every single week from Square Enix, and we discuss things like that. We give you detailed retailer notes. We'll give you the pitch. We'll give you why your marketing rep loves it, which is just me saying how much I love certain series and telling you why. Really, you're just getting just me all the time when it's Square Enix. So if that is something that you want, I got you covered.
Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? I apologize in advance if my cat joins us for this podcast. She just jumped down onto my desk. So special bonus participation from Marceline.
Is Marceline more of like a body horror type, or Junji Ito fan, or don't tell me she's as cliched and only reads the cats?
She actually will actively refuse to be in photos when I try to get her to be in the product photos for A Man and His Cat.
Yeah.
She's like, no, Mom, this is too much. This is too easy. Pick something else.
Pandering.
This is pandering, Mom. But she will absolutely stick her head into photos for what was it that she was sticking her head into the other day? I was doing the photo shoot for the Apothecary Diaries art book that I just received in as a comp to start doing the product photos, and she was definitely into that one. But I guess that more has to deal with the fact that cats can see the color blue, and that cover is almost entirely blue. So she was very intrigued by this giant blue square on the table. So I guess she likes the Apothecary Diaries, which makes sense because, Mau Mau's awesome. So check out that series. Cat approved. There is also a cat in it. So
I've obviously not met Marceline, but I figured she'd be very excited for Godslaying Demon King. That seems like definitely something up her alley.
Definitely up her alley. She very much was looking at the book with me, and she was into the Hiram's Dragon Companion. She's like, that's me, Mom. Oh, I'm the Dragon Companion. Okay. I was like, all right, big dreams there.
Is it harder to get her into something like Tokyo Aliens, or do you think like that's something she'd learn to love?
I think it all depends on if I'm putting fake flowers in the photos, because if I'm putting fake flowers in the photo, like clearly that's the thing that's attracting her to it. She's like, oh, this one gets the fake flower treatment.
Okay, but if you're putting fake flowers in it, wouldn't that be more like trying to get her into My Dress Up Darling?
Yes, and she does love My Dress Up Darling. I will say that as well. She loves that one. She likes watching that anime with us. I don't know why. That is one of the ones that she definitely tunes into with us. I think you think I'm joking, but she will actually sit and watch certain TV shows with us, and then some of them she just won't bother. She's very into The Pit right now on HBO with us. But anyway, enough
You ever get to the point where like you go to watch another episode and you're like, wait, weren't we 2 episodes back? And you find out she's just like,
she's been watching it.
Yeah.
This is, we got to put the child locks on the YouTube and the Hulu accounts.
Like she already hasn't done that to you. Come on.
I know.
What are the adult controls on it? Sorry.
No, it's okay. But one of the benefits you'll get is that if you're ever on a phone call with me or a podcast in this instance, she is not far away.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, I lost the word I wanted. How do you consume your anime? I mean, like what subscriptions do you have? What do you?
So I have almost all the services, which is probably bad for my wallet, but I do subscribe to Crunchyroll. I love Crunchyroll a lot. I did have both Crunchyroll and Funimation when Funimation was still around, so RIP Funimation. I do watch anime on Hulu sometimes if it's like a Hulu exclusive. Same thing with Netflix. Like Delicious in Dungeon, I think was exclusive to Netflix. Sakamoto Days was exclusive to Netflix. So I was watching those there. That would probably be the two main ones are definitely Netflix and Crunchyroll though.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of the older series you can find on Hulu. And then there's also High Dive. And High Dive Picks is a different series. And the only reason I don't use High Dive as often is because they don't necessarily have an app that allows me to control it on my TV. We have to like do this weird reconnection with the computer into the TV through an HDMI cable to get it to kind of like stream on a larger screen. But they have picked some really interesting series to stream as well. So like Oshinoko from Yen Press, that one's really big on High Dive. So that one's there. But 90% of what I watch is probably on Crunchyroll.
So when you sit down to watch something, do you have it in mind? Like, I'm going to watch this series right now, or do you just open Crunchyroll and scroll, or are you in the middle of different series and you have to like, what's the next episode? Kind of like, what is your it's just your viewing? How does that work?
My queue is chaos.
Okay.
Like with any sort of comics consumption, sure. It's chaos. So there are series that I definitely kind of like bookmark to be like, I am going to watch this. I'm really excited because it's getting an anime announcement. Like, I will be watching Gachiakuda when that comes out on whatever streaming platform it decides to come out on, because I absolutely love that manga from Kodansha. So I'm very excited for that, and I'm kind of keeping an eye out on that. Like, same thing with The Summer Hikaru Died. Whenever that gets a platform announced, I'm like, well, I'm definitely going to be watching it there. But then I also will discover series based off of like what's in the like random lines. Like if it looks cute, or if it looks interesting and has an interesting premise. Like that's kind of, I came across some series like Windbreakers from the manga is published by Kodansha, but I was introduced to Windbreakers through the anime first because I picked it at random. Same thing with A Sign of Affection. I picked it at random because it looked cute. The animation looked really solid. Some episodes had a dub, so it makes it easier for me to take it. Like I will consume most of my anime at the gym. Okay. So I'll just have it queued up on and watch it while I'm on the treadmill, or I consume it when I'm traveling to different shows on like long 6-hour flights, because I'll have to like research some stuff for work. If we're not watching a show that like my partner is also interested in, because if he's watching it with me, I can't watch ahead, which much to my dismay keeps me very limited.
That's true though. That's fair.
That's fair. So like,
you want to be like Marceline and just jump, leave people behind. You want to,
yep.
You want to prepare.
And there are series that I'm like, you can't get into this right now. I'm going to finish. I'll rewatch it with you, but I'm watching it now. I've gotten 4 episodes in. I'm not going back.
For your gym consumption, does it have to be a specific genre? Like, no. Do you need it to be a little, okay. So like so the reason I'm asking is because I also only consume television shows while I'm working out, mm-hmm. but it has to be something a little faster pace, a little more action. I have not gotten into Severance because I watched the first episode on my own and thought, I can't work out to this. This is such a slow, dry show that I need dumber stuff like Reacher, like I got into Supernatural a few years ago because it was 15 seasons. I'm like, great, I can do one of these a day. It took me almost all year, and they're fast. They've got fun rock and roll soundtrack. There's fight scenes, and it's enough to keep me going because I've found that my level of intensity will change based on the scene. So, like, I tried to watch West Wing, which it's a terrible show to watch when you're working out because you have to.
It's all talking heads
really
and walking.
Hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm slowing down to be able to pay more attention, and that defeats the purpose. So, but you don't find that as an issue with watching anime?
No, I think for me, if I am going to be watching it in the gym or streaming it in the gym, it will need to be dubbed, which just means it needs to have the English voice acting cast. So I
titled when I'm working out as well.
Exactly. So it's very difficult to concentrate in another language and have to focus on the screen to be able to read the subtitles. And also I get motion sickness really easily. So that is a no-go. So if it has a dub, I'm more inclined to watch it in the gym. And if it doesn't have a dub, then I'm more inclined to watch it when I need to pay attention to it. And that's kind of the only... Sorry, Marceline again was...
Oh, fine.
trying to get attention. But yeah, dubs at the gym, subs everywhere else, I feel like. Because I'm one of those rare people that will listen to both.
Sure. Do you ever do straight Japanese?
Yeah. Well, wait, like without subtitles?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I am not skilled enough. No.
Or could you watch something in straight Japanese that you have already watched dubbed or subtitled, just to try to see how your comprehension is?
I'd have to concentrate really hard on that. Yeah. So my level of Japanese right now is I can understand the general context of what someone is saying, but I'm not able to necessarily respond fluently in Japanese or be able to maybe understand the nuances or details yet, depending on how fast they're speaking. With anime, though, like, there are a couple of phrases and things that I'm able to pick up, or I'm able to kind of understand the general gist of a conversation. But it just depends on the story. So I'll typically watch like kids anime, like Pokemon, in straight Japanese, or try to find like tiny bite-sized YouTube animation episodes in Japanese, like Chikuwa. Those types of things that aren't necessarily too complex.
Sure. Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. I don't think I would do any of those things that I was just suggesting. You know, my limited knowledge of the French language, I would not listen to something purely in French.
It's hard.
I'd be lost.
I sometimes because going back to the audiobook thing, Audible will sometimes have books in other languages.
Yeah.
And I tried doing that with a series that I know backwards and forwards and like wouldn't necessarily need to like concentrate extra hard. Oh my God. I had to slow that down. It was awful. It gave me anxiety in the car because I was like, oh no. Oh, wow. So I was like, I can't do this. Nope. We're going to have to do this when I'm sitting down. It's going to be more of a listening exercise. So yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. Okay. So aside from on and off work-life imbalance and Love in the Palm of His Hands, what are one or two other upcoming Square Enix releases or even current series that are already running that you think stores need to have on their shelves?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one that I really want stores to get on the ball of is Demons of the Shadow Realm by Hiromu Arakawa, who is the creator of Full Metal Alchemist. This is their return back to the shonen genre in a big way. And I feel like it is a shonen sleeper hit in the making. Like, it is only a matter of time before like the floodgates open on this series. The people who are reading it now really love it. And what I love about Hiromu Arakawa's like storytelling style is they have a much long form story at play, but they keep you interested in the short term with the development of the characters over time. So, and they're also their stories are very sibling based and family based, which is really interesting to kind of see that different dynamic. So like in Full Metal Alchemist, you had Ed and Elric, two brothers that were trying to be state licensed alchemists during a very warring time, with some kind of like Middle Eastern references put in there, as well as some like European colonialism as well. And now you have Demons of the Shadow Realm, which is a complete 180 from Full Metal Alchemist. We are starting off with two twins, Yuta and Asa. They're fraternal twins. One is male, one is female, and they're part of this larger prophecy of like the two twins that sunder day and night will be able to wield these two incredible demons in a world where kind of everyone is able to like wield these demon partners and elevate their powers to kind of shift the world balance. And so they're kind of here to either destroy the entire world or bring it together. We're not quite sure like what the overall plan is, because it's Hiromu Arakawa. There are layers to their storytelling. But what I love about this series is that it completely does like an A24 style twist in the first chapter. So spoiler alert if you don't want to know what the first chapter is, but it's pretty easy like once you get into the series. We start with Yuru in this kind of like ancient village, this like Japanese village, and you think that, you know, we're stuck in, you know, ancient times, or it's like in the past, historical fiction type. And then we find out immediately, like within that first chapter, that it is present day Japan, and he has just been lied to his entire life for like 15, 16 years, and it's been all part of this greater plan to make sure that he is kind of like protected and safe and protected from this other like government organization, basically, that is trying to capture him and take advantage of his abilities. And then introduces all of these different types of characters and all of these different government agencies and these families that are very powerful, that also control demons and all these different demon powers. And it kind of it's not just like demons in the traditional sense. It's Japanese yokai from folklore. It's cryptids. There's like potential for, you know,
so a very loose translation of what demons could be. Yes,
exactly. And it's so interesting about like what all of these people can do and what all these creatures can do. But the fun part of it is balancing out the seriousness of the story with Yuru being inside of like a department store for the first time. As a person who's been like, oh my gosh, like I have had to like switch out my rice has had to be cut with like millet. You have like regular rice. It's all pure rice. So there's those fun moments in the series with it as well. And that was just very long-winded to say like Demons of the Shadow Realm is going to be, I feel like I said earlier, a shonen sleeper hit. It has the action. It has the compelling story. It has really interesting characters. If you liked Full Metal Alchemist, you will like Demons of the Shadow Realm. It's more of a supernatural take as opposed to a like sci-fi take. So if you're kind of into that storytelling, that's what I would choose. And then go ahead.
Just to follow up on that, there's what, 7 volumes?
Yes,
currently?
7 volumes currently out of it. It's so good. When we had the fires here in LA, I took the chance to, when my power was out, I took the opportunity to reread that series. And I'm always so impressed with how Hiromu Arakawa loosely introduces certain characters to you, and you think that they're completely benign, but then they turn out to be absolute units of destruction later in the series. And you're like, I am so standing this character. They're the best. And like all the side characters are worth it to me in Hiromu Arakawa stories. They always are. Yeah, it's very clean work too. It's Hiromu Arakawa doing what Hiromu Arakawa does best. So definitely pick that one up. And it's a very easy sell. You just tell people Hiromu Arakawa, creator of Full Metal Alchemist, this is their new series. Like right. When people hear that, they're like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm in. That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. And then the second one, I think it's kind of it's a tie between 2 that are coming out in the fall. The first one's kind of obvious. It's Dragon Quest: The Mark of Erdrick. That we are translating that for the first time in English. It was originally published in Japan 30 years ago under the name Dragon Quest: The Emblem of Roto. So it's a bit of an older manga, which a lot of fans have been asking for translations of more classic manga.
So was the previous Dragon Quest manga that was put out by Viz, was that a licensed thing? Is it the same thing but a different?
I believe that was a licensed project, okay. But I'm not sure where Dai was originally published.
Okay.
But Square Enix published the Emblem of Roto, which is translated into the English edition as the Mark of Erdrick. But this is a separate story from that. They're not connected. They're different. I'm going to call it the Emblem of Roto, and that's not what I should be calling it. Dragon Quest: The Mark of Erdrick is about a 30-volume series in Japan, which we are reformatting to be kind of more like our Perfect Editions. If you carry the Soul Eater Perfect Editions, those like hardcovers that have the extra content in them, so like 1.5 volumes, we're doing that in a softcover format for the Mark of Erdrick. And Dragon Quest is kind of having a moment right now, especially with the re-release or the remakes of the Dragon Quest games. Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake just came out, and a lot of fans are really excited about that. The 1 and 2 HD 2D remake will be coming out later this year. That's public information. And so Dragon Quest is kind of having this moment, and we thought, why don't we bring Dragon Quest: The Mark of Erdrick to print? It's been 30 years since it was originally published. This is the perfect time for that. We're going to give it this special treatment. It's going to get completely like re-lettered, retranslated, all of that special treatment going into it. And then also the story itself, you don't have to play the Dragon Quest games to understand the story. It does take place chronologically in the timeline, it takes place between Dragon Quest III, which is the first game in the series, and Dragon Quest I. So story's in there. But if you are doing really well with like straight fastball down the middle fantasy series, like this is a super, super awesome one to give folks. Because it's just that it is a hero's journey, to be very blunt, I guess.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And it follows the character Prince Aris like 100 years after the great evil was defeated, and now the darkness is coming back into the land, and he's going to have to like gather up his party and stuff like that. And if you're a fan of Dragon Quest, that's awesome. If you're not, you're going to realize that the artwork is very reminiscent of Akira Toriyama's designs for Dragon Quest. He was one of the early character designers for the Dragon Quest video games. So that artwork is reminiscent in that. And he was kind of the creator behind the classic slime design that we know so well today, and has been replicated in a bunch of like JRPG type games. And Dragon Quest has such a rich history in Japan, but not so much so in the West. It's very kid friendly. It's geared towards a younger reader, which is great, or a younger player. So it's kind of that middle grade area. We're rating it teen for 13 plus, so very safe for kids. Yeah, and then the other series is a complete pivot from fastball down the middle fantasy. It's a series called Bride of the Death God, which is a new series coming out of Japan. And if you like your fantasy, or if you like your romance of like the My Chemical variety, this is definitely the book for you, because it is a dark romance between a death god who comes to collect the soul of a woman to take her to the afterlife, or to tell her that she's about to die, and he gets manipulated into falling in love with her and extending her life over and over and over again, because this woman has a unknown incurable disease called bouquet syndrome, where flowers are like literally growing out of her body. And she plays this kind of like demure, helpless heroine, but she's really manipulative and trying to get to extend her life farther and farther and farther, once she realizes that that's this death god who she's acknowledging, who's feeling acknowledged for the first time since he's never felt that way before, and is kind of like coming to grips with that attention. She's also kind of grappling with the aspect of someone seeing her for the first time and not just seeing her disease. And it's a really interesting romance that develops between the two of them. And it does deal with, death and various offshoots of that as well. So, reader beware. But when we announced this at New York Comic Con, this series specifically, it got the highest engagement rate on our social media that we had seen. Exactly. And we were like, why? What is going on here? And like, romance is having a big moment. Romantasy is having a big moment. When you can add in those kind of darker elements into it, that just kind of has a whole other subset of genre of people to appeal to. And like, this kind of just hit on all fronts. The art is gorgeous. The story is great. The characterizations are lovely.
I love the idea of bouquet syndrome being exactly what it sounds like.
Exactly. It is exactly it. But I think that there's a lot of layers to this story that we're not privy to in the first volume. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the story develops over time, and like, what is love between a death god and a human whose life is not necessarily guaranteed. So a lot of questions there. So
Nice.
yeah,
And
those
that
are
is later this year.
later this year. Both of those books are September releases, I believe. Dragon Quest is definitely September. I believe Bride of the Death God is also September. Yes.
Well, I can imagine anybody, specifically any comics retailer that is a comic partner, will get to hear more about those as they come closer.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe one of them will become one of the books we send out.
Ooh. So did we cover how stores get to be a comic partner? They if they're part of the Penguin Random House program where they are already in it, then they're automatically part of it. But if somebody wants to be in it, they just need to talk to their PRH rep?
Correct. Yes. You need to talk to your PRH account rep, ask about the direct market partnership program. They should be able to give you all the details. I believe they are still having enrollment open as of the recording of this podcast.
Okay.
So hopefully it will still be the same whenever this is posted, but definitely talk to your rep. Right now, the program is only open to retailers in the US, so not necessarily open to international retailers at this time, but that does not stop you from connecting with us directly at Square Enix to be able to get this same information, because we are also sending out full PDFs of these books as well on FOC and when they're early available as well, to make sure that you're prepared. It's really only the physical aspect of the galley that comes through the direct market partnership program at Penguin Random House. Yeah. We're not withholding any information, I guess I should say.
How would you prefer retailers get a hold of Square Enix?
Email me.
Okay.
Just email me. I'm not sure if you have show notes, but we can put my email in the show notes.
We do.
Awesome. Cool. You just send me an email. I will absolutely get you all set up on our FOC newsletter. I will answer any questions that you have. If you want me to take a look at your manga section, I am absolutely totally down to do that. Literally here to help you and answer all of your questions and make sure that you're informed.
I took a series of photos of our entire manga section, and I was going to send them to you before this recording, but I didn't want you to think that I was sending it to you as a, hey, what's wrong with this? I just want, like, in the context of when we're talking about manga in the store, this is just a refresher. It's been a few years since you've been in the store. Like, I was going to show you, this is just what our manga section looks like right now.
Mm-hmm.
But then I wound up not sending it to you because I didn't want it to be obligation or work for you when it was just meant to be you looking at it while we talk. That's all.
Well, it's never an obligation. I will happily look at people's manga section. Like I said, no loyalty.
Did we cover everything you wanted to about this program?
I think so. I mean, like, it is still very much in its early stages. It will definitely change and evolve as we get retailer feedback. It is a new venture for us. It's completely unknown territory. As far as I know, no other manga publisher has done a program of this nature that directly targets comic shops in a way that feels meaningful. Not to say that, like, other publishers are not doing great things. Like, you guys should all check out what Kodansha's doing with the retailer packs that they're doing for Gachiakuda and the Witch Hat Atelier, especially with those animes coming out. They're doing something slightly different through Penguin Random House, but it's all good work. We just want to sell manga and comic shops because manga are comics, and you guys are the best place to discover new stories.
Yeah.
So if there's, like, anything about the program that is maybe not working for your store or doesn't work in this first year, hit me up, tell me, so that we can kind of, like, change how we're working on this, because it is kind of just me and the fine folks at Penguin Random House who are putting this together to make sure this happens for you guys.
Yeah, and we're all in this together.
Exactly.
A good idea for somebody could be a good idea for everybody.
Yeah. Did we answer all of your questions in regards to the program or manga in general?
Yeah.
Like, are there more?
Right. One of the things that I'm continually impressed with you is not just your enthusiasm, not just your knowledge, but the simple fact of how quickly and fluently you can throw out these manga creators' names seamlessly, and the pronunciation is amazing. And I'm listening in awe as you're doing it, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't do that. I have to stare at a name for the pronunciation over and over. And then I'm like, well, you, meaning me, you follow a lot of different Japanese wrestlers. Like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, but I have a hard time discerning between Hiromu Takahashi and Hiroshi Tanahashi, especially when they wrestle in the same company.
Yeah.
And I always forget which one is which. Which one has the stuffed cat named Daryl? Oh, that's Takahashi. which one is the ace. That's Tanahashi.
I love that, though.
I still marvel at your depth of knowledge, your enthusiasm, and how universally beloved you are by all retailers. Like retailers, you know this, Morgan, retailers can't agree on anything. We all agree on how awesome you are at what you do and how excited you get us for the things that you're doing, which in fact are the things that we're doing. So we need you to remind us that we like what we do. So good work.
Well, thank you. Hopefully I don't fail anybody or it's really scary to be on a pedestal that high. I'm scared of heights. Okay, guys.
Don't vocalize that. No, I mean, again, comic retailers can't agree on anything, and nobody ever says a bad word about Morgan Perry.
Oh, well, that's very sweet.
Morgan, thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for being a patron of this podcast, being a shelf sponsor at Challengers. Your plaque isn't made yet, but it is coming. Okay. And also, you're going to be on the shelf right next to Amber Benson and her sister.
Yay! Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I'm so excited to be. I'm so glad you have that program available. I think that's a really unique idea.
It's really helped us out. There's been a lot of changes and things we want to do for the store, but haven't been able to afford it. And so now when the shelf sponsorship comes in, I was like, all right, this is specifically for the new lighting. Or I just, over the last weekend, I spent time redoing a ton of shelves in Sidekicks. And yesterday, I just bought the rest of the shelves. And I want to get all these changes done before Free Comic Book Day. None of this would have happened without the shelf sponsorship.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad you're able to do all that.
Yeah. We had here's a little behind the scenes stuff. All of our entire wall faces west, our front wall, and it is very, very long, but it's all glass. It's all double pane glass.
Right.
And the front window right by the front door, something happened along one of the seals, so moisture got in. So it's full of condensation. Oh. So it makes it all cloudy.
Yeah.
So you can't see in. Mm-hmm. And it just looks terrible. And there's no real way to fix it. So we had a window guy come out just this morning to give us an estimate. And basically I wanted to know, how can we fix this? Can I take a heat gun to it? Can I, I know that doesn't stop moisture getting in, but the long story was you have to replace it. It's $1,700 to replace that one window.
Oh my gosh. So that can make or break someone's month in a comic shop.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not doing it. We're not doing it right now, but then it's I guess the next couple of shelf sponsorships are going to that.
Well, I'm happy if that money goes towards that.
Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, there's one day when we're not recording, I'll tell you all of our window drama, and it is so stupid because the windows have always leaked for 17 years, but it's because of how poorly the building was built, and it can't be fixed without taking all the windows out and redoing the frames, which would mean Challenger shuts down for 6 months because of how many windows there are. So that's never going to happen.
No.
But the lengths we've gone to mitigate all the water that comes in is ridiculous, and I think so inventive and so stupid that we have to do it. But that's not things people are supposed to focus on when they're in the store, and hopefully they never even notice it. So there you go. We're going to wrap up the recording aspect of this. Morgan, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.